Hello and welcome. I'm your host Will. We've talked at length about the barbarian known as Conan, but we've never gone over his anatomy. Well, let's fix that, shall we? In this video, we're gonna go over the anatomical facts about Conan the Barbarian. Let's get to it. I think one of the most fascinating anatomical aspects of Robert E. Howard's most iconic creation is the fact that Conan is a mortal being, yet his body acts like he's under some kind of divine protection. While I agree that most fans, including myself, still remember the dark-haired, fiery blue-eyed barbarian as a powerfully built legendary warrior, like it or not, Conan has no supernatural powers at his disposal. What he happens to be is a dynamic blend of primal power and sharp intelligence, someone who is born into a brutal, unforgiving world. In fact, his whole reputation as the ultimate survivor stems from his sheer force of will, complete self-reliance, and unapologetic freedom. Conan is capable of withstanding anything, for that matter, be it heat, cold, violence, trauma, scars, the list goes on. In simple words, Conan is absolutely terrifying because he is notoriously tough. And today, we're gonna take a look at the anatomy of the Cimmerian and check him inside and out. Are you ready? Let's dive right into the video then. What does Conan's build actually tell us about his anatomy? Ever since I first laid my eyes on Conan, the question of how strong the bronze-skinned barbarian truly is has persistently been circling around in the back of my head. So here's the thing about Conan. He's not to be mistaken for someone who is just aesthetically muscular. Mind you, the barbarian is someone who has a visibly large, strong-looking, thick upper body, which complements his equally hard-muscled, powerful lower half. I mean, just one look at his physique and you'll know that Conan's build is specifically designed for violence and survival. Conan's powerful frame, particularly his broad heavy shoulders, massive chest, heavy arms, phenomenally powerful legs, and, dare I disregard that lean waist, show how he has spent his life traversing through terrain, climbing towers and castle walls with ease, wielding heavy weapons, wrestling, swimming, and most importantly, surviving amongst all. Well, this can only mean one thing. Conan's hulking physique is an ideal combination of strong connective tissues, mobile joints, thick muscles, and add to this an exceptionally effective heart and lungs. Come to think of it, it is rather scary that Conan's anatomy is so perfectly balanced. After all, the barbarian is dangerously strong, possessing a body that can repeatedly generate power under even the harshest of conditions. Amongst a horde of other things that Arnold Schwarzenegger's Conan was seen doing in John Milius's Conan the Barbarian, let's not forget that this mountain of muscle effortlessly hacked a giant python to death. How strong would Conan's bones have to be? While there is no denying that Conan is human, it's impossible to ignore the reality that the Cimmerian has sustained repeated severe trauma, falls, hits, and weapon shocks that would otherwise leave a normal man paralyzed. Now, this usually implies one thing. Conan's skeleton, or should I say his bones to be more precise, has to be, I repeat, has to be extraordinarily strong. I mean, how else would one justify all this? We know he's a superhero without any supernatural powers. In addition to having exceptional physical strength and sharp mental capabilities, he is also incredibly well suited to combat and carrying heavy loads. I don't know how to put this any other way, but if his bones were normal, his muscles would actually become an issue. Here I'm talking about applying excessive pressure, which in turn would have led to too many broken bones. Truth be told, Conan's skeletal durability is epic. He has survived crushing falls that would instantly crush ordinary humans. Amongst his many feats of endurance and durability, the Barbarian has seen in the Marvel Comics, Conan the Barbarian number 23, he once leapt out of the window of a medieval castle as part of his escape plan, hundreds of feet below, only to get right back up bloody alive. I have to admit, this was quite an iconic gravity-defying escape. And that's not all. In Robert E. Howard's short story titled Shadows in Zambola, Conan has also managed to survive a strangulation contest with Baal Petior, one who was especially skilled at breaking necks. It makes total sense that this particular fight has been cited by numerous fans of the sword and sorcery genre as one of the Cimmerian's most remarkable displays of pure human strength. You see, each hit that Conan has been a recipient of only suggests that he has a physique strong enough to handle the rebound. Every leap, every climb, and every grapple suggests a body that is designed to endure damage that would otherwise simply shatter a typical man. I mean, you can agree to disagree with me here, but if you do that, I suggest you do that with a strong theory in the comments section. Why is Conan so fast despite being so big. Robert E. Howard has many a time described that Conan's body works very similar to an apex predator, while simultaneously emphasizing the character's panther-like mobility. In fact, in addition to his strength being one of his most consistent traits, Conan is also exceedingly fast, which categorically points one towards Conan's physique, which is a rather strange combination of acceleration and mass. Conan, who weighs well over 200 pounds and is over 6 feet tall, is more likely to be described as having the agility of a jungle cat instead of the imposing weight of a typical bodybuilder. The thing about Conan is he does not just hit hard, he is tactical, he's fast, and that's the reason he's also known as the one-man wrecking crew. If you call yourself a true fan of the Cimmerian, you'll agree with me when I say that he will not hesitate before simply beating the shit out of his foes. While others in his place can still be defeated, it is safe to say Conan does not fall in that category. To top things further, Conan's terrifying speed goes hand in hand with his barbaric strength. Let me give you an example here. In Howard's short story, The Phoenix on the Sword, the way Conan deals with the assassins who ambush him in his bedchamber by dodging their blows and striking them down before they can even detect his movement, it is honestly quite baffling to the eye. Thanks to his corded muscles, steely thews, and panther-like instinct, he can launch an explosive attack before his enemies can even react. I agree that he is big in size, but that has usually always worked out in his favor. If you can recall the short story, The Slithering Shadow, you're bound to remember he took down the horrific abomination otherwise known as Thoth, or should I say, the god of Zuthal, all by himself. How does Conan's body produce so much endurance? Have you ever wondered how Conan manages to survive every fight every single time in spite of being subjected to the most brutal conditions? Well, I for one believe that it is Conan's iron endurance which makes him stand out from the crowd. One cannot disregard the fact that he did end up rowing non-stop all night across the Vilayet Sea, as seen in the short story Shadows in the Moonlight. The point is, we are not analyzing someone who wins quick fights. We are looking at someone who survives long, exhausting battles. So, biologically speaking, it only makes sense that he has an exceptional cardiovascular system, or should I say, a strong, healthy heart that effectively pumps deoxygenated blood to the lungs and oxygenated blood through the systematic circulation. Furthermore, let's never forget that Conan can be absolutely deadly when he is cold, hungry, sliced open, and half exhausted. If you ask me, this is what makes him feel almost inhuman, wherein technically he is human. Remember how a tortured Conan was left crucified on the Tree of Woe in the middle of the desert, as seen in Milius's Conan the Barbarian? Well, even with the vultures pecking at his wounds, Conan retaliated by biting into the bird's throat while still pinned and fighting it off. The Cimmerian is dreadfully terrifying because he's a human body that simply refuses to die. And if you ask me, I find it truly captivating to watch how his iron physique and that indomitable survival instinct can completely override physical pain. What kind of pain tolerance does Conan need to function? First things first, Conan is human, which means that he obviously does feel pain. But then again, the way he processes it is very different. To everyone thinking that the Barbarian is numb, I hate to break it to you that he is anything but that. In fact, what works wonders and in his favor is that he can isolate pain and continue fighting. His pain tolerance is both physical and mental. Well, this does indicate that Conan's neurological system and psychology work together in a frightening manner. Believe me when I say that he is inherently capable of prioritizing immediate survival over suffering. No wonder this makes him extremely terrifying, because hurting him won't actually stop him. I'd like to cite two examples here. Remember the torture device otherwise known as the Wheel of Pain. If you can recall the 1982 movie, you're bound to remember that it was Conan who went on operating the Wheel of Pain all by himself while the rest of the captives ended up dead. Just imagine him chained to the human-powered mill and pushing it for more than a decade without making the slightest grunt. Conan's pain tolerance is certainly a whole new level. The other example is from the short story titled The Scarlet Citadel, where despite being beaten, shackled, and starved in a dark dungeon, Conan immediately engages in a breathless, high-stakes battle, completely ignoring his bruised muscles and wounds. Why does Conan seem to react before his enemies even move? One thing I have always found really amusing about Conan is how he seems to know exactly what his enemy is up to, which puts him on edge in a fight. I mean, when you see him take on multiple assailants at once, Conan doesn't take them down one by one, like how actual swordsmen would do. You know others would probably pause, weigh their options, and decide whom to attack. But not our Conan. Oh no. By the time most people would still be processing what is happening, the Cimmerian has already crossed the distance, dodged the blow, and buried his sword into someone's chest. It's very similar to how Spider-Man uses his sixth sense. This is what happens when a body has been trained since childhood to treat hesitation as the same thing as death. In Conan's world, thinking first and acting second is a luxury, and he never had that luxury, so his body learned to cut that whole step out. Don't believe me? Just take a look at the first Conan story penned by Robert E. Howard, The Phoenix on the Sword. There was a part where in Conan's bedchamber, assassins had creeped in to do their job on the mighty warrior in his sleep, but Conan sensed the danger and was ready for them, already donning his armor and sword in hand. He took down all 16 of them in a flash. I know, he had a dream just before this, which kinda acted as a warning, but then again, who even gets a dream warning? Not me, that's for sure. If that ain't terrifying, I don't know what is. I mean, come on guys, we're talking about a human nervous system that has been hammered by so many life or death moments that it simply bypasses conscious thought. Conan reacts at the slightest hint of danger because his body has learned that anything slower is suicide. If you ask me, that's scarier than any supernatural power could ever be. Why doesn't Conan's body break down from constant physical abuse? Now, let's be honest, guys. If you or I tried to live even 1 year of Conan's life, we would probably spend the rest of our lives limping around with, if nothing at least, terrible back pain. Remember guys, this is not a superhero we are dealing with. Conan is pretty much a human, and he gets constantly stabbed, whipped, he falls from impossible heights, and he even gets crucified. Logically speaking, the human body should start falling apart under that kind of workload, but Conan keeps on trucking. I think the real marvel here lies in how his body seems to treat trauma as a minor inconvenience. Every serious injury that should slow a normal mortal down looks like it gets filed away and converted into experience instead of pain or discomfort. Even the scars on his body read more like trophies than signs of weakness. If anything, the more punishment he takes, the more comfortable he seems to become with operating at that level. Think about that crucifixion scene from John Milius's Conan the Barbarian, where Arnold as Conan is nailed to the Tree of Woe in the middle of the desert, vultures literally pecking at him. Any normal man would die then and there, or survive and never truly recover. Conan bites into a vulture's throat while still pinned to the tree, and that was a real dead vulture by the way, and later goes right back to fighting as if his body has decided that crucifixion is just another training session. Oh boy. Did you know that Conan once lifted Thor's hammer Mjolnir? Yeah, you heard that right. Conan did lift the mighty Mjolnir once in the alternate reality story from What If issue 39. So how did that happen? Well, if you're familiar with the Marvel Comics What If series, you already know the deal. It's a series of alternate stories narrated by the Watcher, that creepy cosmic guy who just stands there observing every possible reality, no matter what's going on. Even if you've got your shower curtains pulled, he pops up, tells you, in one reality, things went like this. But what if it had gone another way? And then shows us a completely different branch of events. So in this particular What If storyline, Thor ends up in the Hyborian Age and becomes Conan's companion. After a long chain of events involving Crom and the Stygian wizard Thoth Amon, which I won't get into in this video, ultimately Mjolnir gets buried deep in the earth, then recovered and used by Thoth Amon to call down apocalyptic storms on the Hyborian kingdoms. Thor and Conan fight their way to the City of Magicians and confront the wizard during a human sacrifice, where the wizard is literally using Mjolnir to channel lightning onto the altar. While Conan battles serpent folk to keep them busy, Thor and Thoth Amon struggle over the hammer itself, each trying to control its power. Here's where things get wild. Thor, weakened and far from Asgard, realizes he cannot win, and instead calls the lightning down onto himself, choosing to die so that the innocents on the altar will live. The hammer obeys his command, the lightning kills Thor, and then turns on Thoth Amon, blasting the sorcerer's body and dark soul into ash inside an empty robe. As Thor lies dying, he tells Conan that benevolent gods of a later age care for mankind more than Crom's cold indifference or Set's bloodlust, and he begs Conan to take Mjolnir to Crom as proof of that. Conan is still not sure whether Thor is truly a god or just a madman, but he honors their friendship and agrees. So yes, Conan actually picks up Mjolnir and takes it with him back to Cimmeria. He begins climbing Crom's gray mound, hammer in hand, determined to carry out Thor's dying wish and present the weapon as a symbol to the Hyborian gods. The Watcher's narration ends the story there, saying that whether Conan reaches the summit or not is beside the point. What matters is that on that day, Conan the Mortal took his first step toward becoming much more. That line alone tells you how the comic wants us to see him. What does Conan's psychology have to do with his physical toughness? I know it's very tempting to look at Conan and only see the muscles, but then you're missing half the picture. This man has a mindset that, in itself, is almost a weapon. This guy doesn't approach battle thinking, I hope I survive. His whole attitude reads more like, if I die, I die. But until that happens, I'm gonna rip apart anything in my path. So he has no fear, which exhausts the energy. Yeah, think about it. When a person is scared, their body tightens up. They hesitate, and they waste time trying to process pain and danger. Conan has lived so long on that thin edge between life and death that he has learned to skip those reactions. He feels pain, sure, no denying that, but he files it away as background noise. He understands that he might die, but he doesn't waste breath worrying about it while the sword is swinging. So we have a body that is terrifyingly strong, wrapped around a mind that refuses to accept any outcome except survival. Isn't that just lovely? The two feed into each other in a way that turns Conan into something more than just a big guy with a sword, don't you think? How much of Conan's terror comes from training versus genetics? First things first, this barbarian here is a product of raw, uncorrupted Cimmerian biology. So, while there is no denying that Robert E. Howard has presented the Cimmerians as tough nuts to crack, but when it comes to Conan, he, being a Cimmerian himself, is exceptional, even amongst the lot. Conan's Cimmerian biology has blessed him with a dense muscular frame, great size, and outstanding durability, and, dare I disregard, that propensity for strength. So what people mistake for elite training is basically Conan's primal instinct and early conditioning. You can tell from an early age, Conan had to hunt, climb, and fight for his life. He learned to move like a panther not because anybody taught him to do that, but because those who did not move fast died. The true core of his terror is always going to be his raw strength, predatory reflexes, and an unbreakable immune system, thereby making him a natural-born apex predator in a world of domesticated men. How do the comics and Arnold version change Conan's physical image? I'll begin with the films first. Arnold Schwarzenegger's Conan has one of the most iconic bodies in the world of sword and sorcery films. I mean, look at that smoldering, brawny appearance, his heavily chiseled chest, and those bursting biceps. He had me drooling. So when Schwarzenegger admitted to feeling way too ripped to be a barbarian, especially with him writing that on Reddit, it did serve as a reminder to us fans that the character Conan was not supposed to appear that polished. What he is supposed to look is dangerous, and not dangerously hot like he did on screen. Now when it comes to the comics, they're not bound by limitations like budgetary constraints. In simple words, if an artist has the skills, they can draw and express just about anything. That being said, comics are meant to amplify characters, expand on their lore. So when a comic amplifies Conan's feats and makes him do the impossible, I think that's fair, at least as long as the essential anatomy is left untouched. What about you guys? Are you with me on this? If you feel the same, you know where the comment section is. What is the scariest thing about Conan's anatomy? Well, to round things out, the scariest thing about Conan's anatomy is that he's human. The Barbarian happens to be a terrifying representation of what a human body could turn into if shaped by an age that had every part of life training for survival. From a physiological point of view, I would call Conan an anatomical paradox, the crushing force of a mountain gorilla coexisting rather harmoniously with the fluid agility of a predatory jungle cat. While a big frame tends to tire out fast, Conan breaks all the biological rules. And truth be told, his cardiovascular endurance defies his size. Last but not the least, Conan's signature combat style is instantly exploding from stone-like stillness to a blur of lethal motion before his opponent can even react. Tell me honestly, from someone who is over 6 feet tall and weighs more than 200 pounds, it is physically impossible, right? Guess that isn't the case for Conan the Barbarian. If you ask me, this mighty barbarian warrior just hits so hard as a character. The true alpha of the Hyborian age is unsettling in ways one cannot even imagine. Anyway, I hate to admit, but this is all I have for today, folks. So what is it about Conan's anatomy that you find the most terrifying? If you want me to do separate videos exploring Conan's complete origins from all the continuities, please know that I am taking requests. Let me know all that you want me to cover in the comments section down below. Now, if you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more such videos. As for me, I promise I'll be back with another favorite video soon. Thanks for watching and have a good one.